We're back Sunday night. Wildcard weekend is now over. The Cleveland Browns just upset the Steelers. Overall, a couple upsets this wildcard weekend. I don't think anybody exactly predicted what was going to happen. Steelers losing wildcard weekend. Brandon, first reactions?
Yeah, you picked Steelers, right? When we did our playoffs.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we both
I
picked the
picked
Steelers.
Steelers. Yeah, we both picked Steelers. This is probably. We'll get into the other games, but this is probably the worst loss of Wild Card Weekend, I'd say. And like I said, we'll get into the other games, but considering you're at home, I know the Steelers weren't great this year, they didn't end off great, I should say, but they were at home. The Browns were without their head coach, basically. Their play caller in Stefanski. They're out. They were out one of their top offensive linemen. They only practiced once this week, and I think they only practiced once the week before. So they've practiced twice in 2 weeks. It's honestly an inexcusable loss. Maybe not inexcusable, but at least the way they played. Maybe if they played a tough game that was just back and forth the entire game, maybe you could justify that. But even though you may look at the stats and be like they actually didn't play that bad. If you watch the game, it was a completely different story. Ben, he threw the ball 68 times this game, which is
Yeah, he threw
crazy.
for what, 500,
He
low
threw for
500 something.
501 yards.
It didn't. Okay, technically, I guess if you want to say it felt like a game where Big Ben threw for 500, or you could say so, but it was not a good 500 at all.
Oh no. He threw
It
four
was.
picks.
Yeah, I think the way. Yeah, I agree with you. Had the Steelers had a hard fought loss against the Browns, and the Browns, honestly, if they were just a better team and the Steelers lost, then you'd say all right. But the way the Steelers lost, it's probably worse than any other team on this wild card weekend, except for, maybe you would say the Seahawks, but I would say the Steelers probably had the worst losses,
Yeah.
especially because the Browns were, they were down Batonio, Denzel Ward,
Yeah.
um,
Other
obviously
top.
Stefanski, their other top cornerback.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
And
yeah,
they're out multiple coaches also. They were missing a lot of people.
it's a game the Steelers definitely should have won. And had the Steelers won, they'd be going on to Buffalo to play Buffalo.
Yeah.
Not sure
And
if they win that game, but still.
yeah, no, probably not. But the way the game started, the first snap was a touchdown for the Browns. It was a bad snap that went into the end zone. I think that kind of set the tone of the game. I don't think most people expected it to be 28-0 at the end of the first quarter. I don't think anyone saw that. But to have the first snap of the game be over the head of Big Ben and then be a touchdown, and then they come back, get a pick. I don't know if the next one was a pick. I know he threw like two picks in a row. I'm not sure if it was the second one or the third drive and fourth drive, but yeah, to see the score be 28-0 after the first, not even the end of the first quarter with like 4 minutes left. That was, I was not expecting that at all. Not even close.
Yeah, who do you credit the Browns more for winning this game, or the Steelers just did the Steelers just lose the game basically in the first quarter?
I would say the Steelers lost the game. They had three turnovers in the first quarter alone. In most games, that's going to lose you the game no matter what. To be in the first quarter, there's no way you can come back from that. And the Browns, they got the turnovers and they capitalized on them. They had, the Jarvis Landry 40-yard touchdown. Again, I think that may have been from. Let me just check to see if that was. It was interception on the next drive, then the touchdown by Landry, then the Steelers punt it, then touchdown, interception, touchdown for the Browns. So they scored 21 points on three turnovers. That's exactly what you have to do. If you're going to force turnovers, then you have to score points. That's exactly what the Browns did. So I would say the Steelers lost this game. I can't even really blame the defense because you're put in situations where the other team has the ball inside on your own territory. So it's hard to stop them anyways. But I would blame this solely on the Steelers offense.
Yeah, what did you think of Baker Mayfield in the offense for Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, they were given great opportunities, so that definitely helped. But I think this was a great game for Baker. I mean, 263 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, no sacks. I mean, this is the top sack team over I think there was a stat the last 4 years they have the most sacks across the NFL. So he didn't get sacked once. He didn't really ever get pressured. Like I couldn't even really think of a time where he even got like hit. So yeah, it was a great game by the Browns. I mean, their running game it wasn't great. I mean, they still had 127 yards, but they really didn't need it to be amazing. So it kind of just flowed with the offense. And yeah, I thought they looked really good.
Yeah, I mean, had you told me going into this game the stat lines for Mayfield had been 21 for 34, 260 yards and 3 touchdowns and 0 picks, I mean, I probably wouldn't believe you. And
Yeah,
had you told me that they put up 48 points and only had what? I mean, how many rushing yards did they have on the ground? Like only 100,
they had 127.
120? Yeah, 127. I mean, had you told me that, I probably wouldn't believe you as well.
Yeah.
I definitely did not expect them to score 40. I mean, obviously, it's not necessarily a real 48 points, but yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody expected this going into this game. The Steelers are, I mean, they played pretty poorly and they're a first round exit now, which to me is pretty surprising. I mean, I don't know if it makes the AFC divisional round more interesting or less interesting. I think Baltimore going to Buffalo. Uh, I mean, I'm pretty excited for that game. Cleveland going to
Yeah.
Kansas City, not nearly as excited for that game, but
Yeah, I think that Baltimore Buffalo game is going to be a really good game. It's a better game than if it was Baltimore Kansas City, I would say. I think those two teams, Buffalo and Baltimore, I think they match up better than Kansas City and Baltimore do.
yeah, I mean, I think my favorite thing about it is the Chiefs will at least have a real team to play in the AFC conference championship, which is good.
Yeah. And I mean, I just have a question. I mean, do you think this is Big Ben's last game?
Probably not. I would say probably not. I like what would the Steelers do next year? I mean,
Well, I mean, maybe they'd have to figure that out, but not even. I'm not even looking at it through the Steelers' point of view. I'm kind of looking at it through his point of view. I mean, watching him out there and basically the entire season. I mean, if he gets hit, then I mean, he can't move anyways. But if he gets hit, then he can't move even more. I mean, he had the elbow surgery. He threw the ball. I mean, I don't know how many pass attempts he had throughout the whole season, but it seemed like he was throwing the ball a lot because they obviously couldn't run the ball. I mean, I don't know. I just even though they went 12-4 this year, everyone kind of thought that it was kind of fraudulent, which it clearly was, as evidenced by today. But I don't know. I just think for him, I mean, maybe he thinks he could maybe compete for a Super Bowl with this team, but I mean, I really don't see it. I mean, not saying like I don't know. I just think he should retire. I just don't think that he's going to be good enough to play on like a winning team.
yeah, no, I would agree in the sense that Big Ben's probably not winning a Super Bowl at all anymore. But in his mind, is he going to retire? To me, probably. I don't see him retiring this year. I mean, he still has at least something left in the tank. It's not a lot, but I mean, he can throw the ball 68 times, which I mean, that's not you never want to throw the ball 68 times in any game ever, but
Yeah.
I mean, he can at least still throw the ball, which is I mean, good. He has good football awareness. Even I mean, he's not like a Tom Brady or Manning like pre-snap or anything, but I still think he's a competent quarterback in this league. I don't know if he's like a Steelers or nothing person, but yeah, I mean, I don't think he'll retire, but I'm not exactly sure where he'll go. I'd assume he stays on the Steelers though, and plays there for another year. It'll be interesting to see how the Steelers are next year. I mean, like if you ask me
Yeah.
today, I'd probably end up predicting them missing the playoffs entirely. I don't know if that they're a playoff team to be honest. And now is it a different story if they get all their players healthy and back for next year? Then I mean maybe I guess, but even then, I'm not exactly sure if this team is better than Miami or Indianapolis with a different quarterback, or maybe even still Philip Rivers. Who knows? I'm not exactly sure on that one.
Yeah, I would say if anything, he comes back for just next year, and like maybe they trade for Darnold, or maybe they draft a quarterback at like second round, maybe something like that. Who knows? Um, I'd say if he doesn't retire this year, which he's always talked about retirement, if he doesn't retire this year, I'd say definitely retires after next year. But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I wouldn't, even if he's quarterback next year, I don't even think they're a playoff team. I mean, you have two playoff teams in your same division. And I mean, I don't see them winning the division next year. So I think it'd be tough for them to get a wild card spot. And they're definitely not
Yeah.
going to be 12-4 next year. So
Yeah, probably not unless they start off 11-0, then maybe they will be 12 and
yeah.
4, but my favorite game of today at least was, I mean, it was Baltimore at Tennessee. Baltimore ended up winning that game 20-13. Right off the bat, I mean, when Lamar threw that first interception, I just thought in my head, like here we go again. Like, here's Lamar's just absolutely
Yeah.
horrible playoff performance. He ended up proving me wrong. I mean, he by no means did he have an outstanding day, and his stat line was nothing. It didn't look as great, but I feel like if you watch the game, I mean, they first they won, so he clearly did enough for them to win the game. But I mean, I still thought that Lamar, he got over the hump in terms of being able to win a playoff game. That 48-yard touchdown run was, I mean, even if you don't view him as a great quarterback, you still have to have some value for how good he is and how much better he is at running the football than any other quarterback in the league right now. I mean, I think he proved me wrong with this game. I technically picked the Ravens to win, but I never been a big Lamar guy. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts on it are and his performance. Maybe you have a different opinion than I do on his performance, but
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say proved like I'm also with you. I'm not a Lamar guy, so I wouldn't say he proved me wrong. Again, I picked the Ravens also. I kind of attribute this win more to their defense, honestly. I mean, Lamar definitely made plays when he had to, and with his legs, obviously, but their defense did a great job stopping Henry. He had, I think, 40 yards, I think it was. Yeah, 18 carries for 40 yards. They had nothing going on the ground. I think they had 51 yards total on the ground. So I give it a lot more credit to the defense of Baltimore, not so much Lamar, but just to get the win. And again, he played good enough to win, but it's against one of the worst. It's probably, you have to look at the defenses, but if it's not the worst defense, it's probably the second worst defense that made the playoffs in both conferences. So I can't look into it that much. I think next week, again, them going against Buffalo, I think that's gonna be more of a matchup for them because it's a high power offense that can score in multiple different ways and a defense that's good enough in causing turnovers, which Lamar has a problem with. So I think next week will be a really good matchup for Lamar and see how he's actually improved over these last couple weeks and stuff.
yeah, I mean, that for me, probably that game, I could honestly see the Ravens beating the Bills. I could see the Bills beating the Ravens.
Yeah.
It might be. I'm not sure if it's my best game for the divisional round yet. I mean, I guess I have to think about it, but it might. There's a very solid chance it ends up being the most entertaining. I mean,
Yeah, I think so too.
yeah. I mean, as far as I mean, I would agree on the Ravens defense. I mean, holding Henry to 40 yards and 18 carries is just, and you could see on the sidelines he was frustrated the whole game. It's just, I definitely did not expect them to hold. I mean, nobody holds Henry to 40 yards and 18 attempts has since, I mean, like what, before last season. So
Yeah, probably.
I mean, it was an outstanding performance by the Ravens defense. Yeah, I mean, I guess you're probably right on Lamar. I don't know if my word selection of proving me wrong was the best choice of words, I guess, but he definitely proved some haters wrong. I mean, he didn't necessarily. I mean, he didn't throw for any touchdowns, but I mean, he was so good in the running game, and it's just going to be interesting to see if this style of offense and if Lamar can next week against the Bills also run for, what was it, 100? He ran for 136 yards. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if that's sustainable or not. It's we've never seen a quarterback like Lamar, so I'm not exactly sure if it is in the playoffs at least. I mean, we'll see, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it was more towards the people who, as soon as they won, it was kind of like, where's the Lamar hate? I mean, like, I guess you technically can't hate on him as much now, but I think you definitely still can. I mean, it's not like he played great. I mean, on the ground, yes, but in the air, I mean, this game was honestly right where the Titans wanted to be. They were up 10 points early. That's where you'd expect Henry to come in, get you yards on the ground, and then force Lamar to throw. But The Ravens, I mean, that 48-yard touchdown, that was a great read. I think it was third down and they had pressure and it
Yeah.
just opened up through the middle and he just outran. I think it was Kevin Byard who had to come up to make a tackle and I think he just ran right by him. So that was a great play. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
You
But
probably had to have that. You probably had to have that touchdown as the Ravens. I mean,
yeah, because if they don't convert that, they're punting.
down 10-0, and that's when, I mean, that's
You
exactly where
just
the Ravens have never
yeah
wanted to be
yeah.
historically with Lamar. Is I mean,
I
what
mean
I've
that.
always said is sorry.
What were you saying?
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, what I've always said on the show and before the show is, Lamar's great in the regular season, especially when they're a front running team. But I mean, when you fall down 10-0 and Lamar actually has to throw the ball and the defense and the pass rush can just pin their ears back and just rush the quarterback every single play, that's when you find that Lamar is just probably not a top 10 quarterback and just pure throwing the ball talent. He's probably bottom half, but I mean, and the throwing part, I guess he didn't throw the ball necessarily outstanding today, but he came back from a 10-point deficit in the playoffs, which is something I definitely didn't think he'd be able to do. Once they fell down 10-0, I thought in my head that the Titans were probably going to win the game, but I was wrong. So
Yeah, I think they said that this was Lamar's first win after being down 10 points. I think that's what they said. So, I mean,
ever.
I think that's what it was. Maybe I read it wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. So, I mean, the narrative was true that, when you get them down by double digits, they're most likely not going to come back and win because you're forcing Lamar to throw the ball rather than run the ball, which he's obviously way more effective as. But honestly, I mean, I don't know. I mean, just looking into the Titans a little bit, I mean, you have Tannehill under contract, you have Henry under contract. They still have a good offensive line. You have AJ Brown, who's definitely he's probably, he's definitely an underrated receiver. I think just because their offense, you just think of Derrick Henry. You don't really think of AJ Brown that much, but their defense, I mean, if they're going to do anything, and I know you're not a big Tannehill guy, but if they're going to do anything, in the playoffs for these next couple of years, they're going to shore up that defense. I mean, their big problems was pass rush, which they were actually pretty good. They had 5 sacks today, and they were getting to Lamar a lot, but their secondary is also terrible, and that really showed. Even though Lamar didn't have a great job throwing the ball, in situations where he had to, they were making plays. I mean, Hollywood Brown had 109 yards. I mean, he's been terrible all season. So, if they're going to do anything in the future, they're just going to have to shore up the defense. But we'll have to see. I mean, Henry, again, it's the running back thing. Like, I'm not saying he's going to slow down or anything, but he's getting all these carries. You just signed to the contract. Well, let's see what happens next year and see if he's still as effective.
Yeah, I mean, before today's game, I would agree with you on everything you said about the defense. I mean, the defense for me, though, although I still agree with it after today's game, it's definitely not the reason they lost.
No, no.
I mean, the defense. I mean, holding the Ravens to 20 points, you have to expect that in a playoff game, you have to just your offense has to score more than 13 points, obviously. Uh, Now, I mean, if you look at the offense, the only things you'd be doing is you'd be adding in like another wide receiver, or you'd be looking probably at the quarterback, and you'd be looking at the quarterback. Is Ryan Tannehill going to win you a Super Bowl? I mean, I've never been a big Ryan Tannehill guy, so I would probably say no. But if you're not looking at the quarterback, then I mean, I guess you're looking at the defense, which I mean, I'm still going to look at, and I'm going to draft mostly, if not all, defense in the draft. Maybe, I mean, you could definitely use a wide receiver, but I mean, who couldn't use another good wide receiver?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Titans for me, even though they made the AFC Championship last year, and they're still just to me, they're a one and done. Maybe they get to the championship if they get hot like last year, but to me, they're like a one and done team, and they can probably be 11-5 every year, 10-6 every year, especially if Henry's going to rush for over 2,000 yards. But are they ever gonna make it to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl with Tannehill as a quarterback? To me, no. But that's just something that they'll have to answer in the offseason, is if Tannehill's the guy. They signed him to the contract, so I'd assume that they are fine with rolling for him for the next few years, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think they shore up the defense. They're a team that needs a really good defense because of Henry, obviously. But they would have like a top 15 defense. I think they'd be much better. But Yeah, they're definitely. I mean, they're going to lose Corey Davis in free agency, most likely, I'd assume. So yeah, they're probably going to draft defense and then a wide receiver, maybe sign someone. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with them. They're definitely not the top team in the AFC, but if their defense gets better, they could definitely be in that conversation.
Yeah, we'll get into the Saturday games. I mean,
Well, do you want to get Bears Saints?
sorry, yeah, totally forgot because that game was. I
That
mean,
game is no, that game is pretty boring, honestly.
I mean, it was slightly closer than I guess most people expected, technically, especially off the bat. I mean, the first thing was, what was the wide receiver? Wims, forget his first name, but I mean,
It's
whatever his name was,
Javon Wims.
yeah, whatever his name is. I mean, that drop
Yeah, no, that
was
was
that right after that. I feel like, I mean, again, just like who was commentating that game, I think it was Buck and Aikman. I think
no, it
Aikman
was
was saying like,
Nance and Romo.
was it Nance and Romo?
Yeah,
I mean, that's a game you just. I mean, sorry, that's a catch you just. I mean, you have to have that, especially against the Saints. Uh,
yeah.
when he dropped that and the offense couldn't do anything the whole game, I kind of knew the game was over. Had you caught that, and I think at that point you would have been in the lead, right? Because it was 7-3,
It
I think.
was no, I think it was. I want to say it was 7-0. Yeah, it was 7-0. It
7-0.
was
So you would
yeah,
have tied the game, though. I mean, that's a catch you have to have. The Bears kind of shot themselves in the foot many times. I feel like you almost had the Saints. Well, no, you didn't have the Saints where you want to have them necessarily, but you played about as competitive of a game as you could have played, and the offense was so incompetent that you can't be wasting touchdowns. And so, yeah, I mean, I know there was a report about Trubisky and that if they don't, go on a long run in the postseason, he's probably done. So, I'd expect that if they lose the game, since they've lost this game to the Saints, and I would say most of it is basically because the offense is incompetent. I'd assume Trubisky's done in Chicago. Maybe he still makes the team, but I mean, I'd assume they're going to bring a different quarterback in. But
well, the only question I have with that is that they have basically no money in free agency. Like their salary cap, they're up against the salary cap. Allen Robinson's a free agent. Mitch Trubisky's a free agent. I mean, they didn't pick up his option, so he's going to be a free agent. It seems like Nagy's going to stay. It seems like Ryan Pace, their GM's going to stay. But like if you let Trubisky go, and I think they have the 20th pick in the draft, so a late first round pick. You know, what exactly are you going to do for the future? Their future is kind of foggy right now. I mean, if you let Trubisky go, then who are you bringing in for quarterback? I mean, you still have Foles, but I mean, I don't think anyone's viewing him as like a playoff caliber quarterback for a team. So who are you bringing in? I mean, maybe they trade for Deshaun Watson. I mean, that was news that's happened over the last couple of days that he wants to be traded. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But maybe they want to trade for Watt. I mean, they definitely would want to, but could they trade for him? We'll have to see. Yeah, it's gonna be. I'm just not sure exactly what they're gonna do going into the future, but it does seem like Trubisky is gone unless there's just no better option out there, and they bring him back on like a 2-year deal or maybe a 1-year deal, something like that.
yeah, I mean, so as far as the Deshaun Watson trade's concerned, I'd assume that the Texans. I mean, who knows what the Texans want? They're the Texans, but I'd assume if they're going to trade Watson, they'd like to get a quarterback in return, or at least a pick to take a quarterback in
Yeah.
return. The Bears just can't offer that at all. So I don't think Deshaun Watson gets traded to the Texans now. I mean, I'm not too familiar with their GM now that I don't even know who's managing everything with
It's the
Still
Patriots
O'Brien.
guy. It's
Well,
Cassilia.
now okay, sorry. Yeah, now it is. Okay. I don't know why I just totally forgot that,
Yeah.
but
I mean, that's the reason why he
uh
wants to get traded. So,
well, not Casario getting hired. I don't think that's the reason he wants to get
well,
traded, but
it's because they said they were gonna let him know who they were gonna hire, and he was supposed to have input on it, and then they never even told him about it. And then
yeah.
they hired, and there was another Patriots guy like Bill O'Brien. That I think that's another. There's multiple reasons why he wants to get traded, but these last couple events have really
Probably
shifted
tip
the
the
tide on that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, I mean, as far as the Bears are concerned, I don't think that they'll get Watson. I don't really know what their best plan would be for quarterback. I don't know who would they be able to get in free agency. I mean, would they be able to get? I'm just trying to think. I mean, would they be able to get like Derek Carr?
Well, I mean, he's not a free agent,
No,
so
I know, but I'm saying would they be able to like
I mean, would they be able to
trade
trade?
for
I
him?
mean, you have to see what the Raiders want to do. I mean, like if they want to go with the young quarterback, maybe they go with Marcus Mariota. Maybe they just stay with Carr for another year. I'm not really sure. You have to see what they do, but I mean, I don't really like if you're the Bears, do you go with the young quarterback, or do you still think your team's good enough where you had, a good quarterback, a top 15 quarterback, you think you could actually make a run for like an NFC championship? I mean, I'm not sure. I don't
Well,
think they are, but I mean, they went 8-8 this year. So, I mean, I don't think they are, but I mean, I don't know what they're thinking.
with Pace and Nagy probably staying, I would assume that, they and the ownership think that this team is good enough to compete for the playoffs. And if not, win playoff games. I don't think they're going to just blow it up because if they do, that means, I mean, that would most likely mean Nagy and Pace are gone if the Bears don't make the playoffs next year and actually probably win playoff games. Uh, so I would assume, they're willing to do whatever. If it's an old quarterback, young quarterback, they want to have a competent QB. So then they have a chance at making the playoffs and maybe even winning the division. Who knows? I mean, I don't think they're going to win the division, but I mean, well, it'll be interesting to see, but yeah, I mean, they're probably not going to be able to draft a quarterback. If I'm the Bears, okay, if I'm Pace specifically, I'm not drafting a quarterback. I mean, it just, if I'm trying to keep my job, I need to use those draft picks elsewhere. I can't afford to draft a quarterback and stash him away behind a veteran for years because, if I don't win a playoff game next year, there's a very solid chance that I'm just fired. Uh, but looking at the Bears roster just in general, I personally don't think they're good enough to win a Super Bowl, even if they were to add like a Derek Carr or, even if for some reason they were able to get like a Dak Prescott. Like, I don't even think that even with the Prescott or something, they're still not good enough, in my opinion. I don't like the defense as much anymore as people did before, and I think everybody kind of can agree on that. Is the Bears defense isn't nearly as dominant as it used to be. I mean, Max, not the same player as well, at least he didn't have as nearly as good of a year as he's had before, obviously. Uh, they're not, Allen Robinson's a free agent. They're probably not going to bring him back. I would assume they're probably not.
He even if they wanted to, I don't think he would want to go back. I think he
Probably
hates
not.
Chicago. So
Probably. I mean, because he didn't get a contract extension, probably. I think that. I mean, well, we'll
well,
see. But
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. But I mean, it definitely wouldn't surprise me if the Bears went 7-9 or 6-10 next year, and then Nagy and Pace get fired.
Yeah, I think
But
that's probably a pretty real possibility.
I
So
just, if I'm the ownership, I would bring Nagy and Pace. But if I'm gonna bring them back, I'd let them know that like they have control for the next couple years, not like it's a you got to win next year type of thing, because then you're just delaying the inevitable, which is a full rebuild. And if I'm gonna full rebuild, I want to do it. I'd like to do it as soon as possible. I'd probably end up trying to see what you can get for aging pieces. I don't know exactly who you'd want to trade and who you'd want to keep, but I'd look to trade, veterans and see what I can get for them and try to just start building to the draft at this point, because I don't think you're competing for a Super Bowl with this current defense and especially this current offense. So
yeah, totally. Looking at the Saints, a team that could compete for a Super Bowl. I mean, I can't really look too much into this game. I mean, they're playing the worst team that made the playoffs, and I'd say yes, they definitely were the worst team that made the playoffs. So I can't really look too much into it. It was definitely closer than, like you were saying, it was definitely closer than you would have liked, but they did pull away at some point. You knew it was going to happen. The game, even when it was 7-3, it really was never, question who was going to win the game. Breeze had a good game. You can't say he didn't. Obviously, the turnover that they had, of course, was Taysom Hill, which I just don't understand playing him at all. Especially, I mean, maybe if you want to do some like jet sweeps or something like that, but like him throwing the ball, I mean, I don't know what they were thinking with doing that, but
I mean, it would have been there had Taysom Hill just gotten the ball off, but yeah, I mean,
I mean,
I generally would agree with that.
yeah, it just confuses me whenever he's out there and Breeze isn't. I'd just rather have Breeze out there than Taysom Hill, but um, I mean, yeah, I mean, Kamara first game back, from the COVID. Thomas after missing 3 games, Thomas definitely looks healthy, which is good for them. Kamara, I mean, he's Kamara, he's always going to be good. So, I can't take too much from it. They're playing the Bucks next week, and I mean, how I feel about the Bucks, third time facing them, and just how the Bucks have been playing. So, I definitely have my mind set on who I think is going to win that game. Obviously, by the picks that we did, but I can't say the Saints really shifted my opinion, towards their favor.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Saints are concerned, I mean, I didn't love the game that they played. They barely played well enough to beat the Bears. I mean, had they played any other team in the playoffs, there's a very solid chance they end up losing, to be honest. I mean, they let the Bears hang in that game. They gave the Bears every chance they could have wished for to win that game. And I mean, obviously the Bears didn't seize any opportunities, but if they were playing the Rams with the healthy Goff or something like that, I mean, I don't know that they win that game, but I don't know. I mean, so did the Saints need a playoff win to like get back into shape because of the stigma around, I mean, how the Saints have been the past few years? I don't think they necessarily need a playoff win to get rid of that because they've won playoff games before. I mean,
Yeah.
even just recently they've made the NFC Championship in 2018. So I don't think it was anything like that. It'll be curious to see in the divisional round. I mean, is it different against like a divisional rival opponent and the Buccaneers that they've beaten twice already and they know that they can beat this team? Maybe, but for some reason, I just feel like I would have loved, if as a Saints fan, I would have loved to have seen a dominant performance today, and that's just not what I saw at all. So if I was a Saints fan, I'd be slightly worried for next week.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll definitely play better against the Bucks. Like, I think they looked at the Bears and kind of said, we could beat them by not playing our best game, which was evident today. But against the Bucks, I think they'll definitely be more up to play. I mean, like you said, they already beat them twice. They obviously seen them twice. They know them. They know all the players. They know their schemes. I don't know their schemes, but like they know the team. It's not like this is the first time that they've seen them. So, and they know it's probably like the second best team. Them and the Saints are probably the second best team behind the Packers. So, yeah, I mean, I think it'll be a great game. We'll have to see what happens. Again, I think the Bucks are going to win. You also picked the Bucks. You never been playing the Saints, but you did have the Bucks winning. So, yeah, I think it'll be a great game.
Yes, I mean Saints versus Bucks. I mean, my initial prediction would be Bucks, but that's just because I'm biased in that perspective. But I mean, I guess we'll move to the Saturday games and we'll just start with Bucks and Washington. Um, I mean, what were your first reactions? My initial reactions were, I mean, the Bucks kind of got lucky by getting to play the NFC East division winners, but at the same time, I mean, I don't think they had all that bad of a game. I mean, I don't. What were your first reactions from that game?
I mean, we're talking about Bears starting quarterbacks for next year. I mean, Taylor Heineke. I mean, he's a free agent. I mean, maybe the Bears sign him.
I mean,
I mean, that was the talk last night. I mean, he played great last night. What
yeah,
happened? What were you gonna
I mean,
say?
he definitely played well. I mean, part of it's like a meme, but part of it's like not
Yeah,
a meme. But like, honestly, I mean, why is everybody like overhyping how well he played? I get half of it's a meme, but like, why is Patrick Mahomes tweeting out like, regardless of the
yeah,
outcome,
yeah,
like
yeah.
Taylor Heineke, what a game, man! Like, I mean, yeah, he played well, but like, it's not like he's gonna start.
I mean, he's never gonna do that again. So
Yeah, I didn't understand it, but it was like funny at the time.
yeah,
But
no, it's definitely like it was definitely a meme. It was definitely funny. Yeah, I mean, they definitely Washington put up way more of a fight than I mean, I thought Alex Smith was going to start. I mean, when we did the episode on Thursday, Smith was going to start. So no one, I mean, there was talk maybe they'd rotate between the two of them. If Smith just couldn't move, which I mean he can't, but like if he was looking really bad, they'd maybe switch. But they went with Heineke. I mean, Smith wasn't even dressed, so it was just Heineke out there. I mean, the way he escaped, the way he was able to avoid pressure. Obviously, The Bucks were playing without Devin White, which I think was actually pretty underrated. He's one of the best linebackers in the league, especially for him being in his second year. So that was definitely big for the Bucks not having him. But yeah, I mean, Washington. I think we both said this. I mean, if they could put up more than 20 points, they have a chance. And their defense didn't play great. It definitely wasn't their best performance. If they would have had the game again, the defense would have played it differently. They really, I mean, they sacked Tom 3 times, but it really didn't feel like that. It really didn't feel like they were getting to him that much. Chase Young did absolutely nothing. So, you shouldn't be talking if you're not going to perform in the game. Tom, I mean, guys, switching to the Bucks a little bit, but Tom, I thought he looked really good. I mean, I'm kind of curious to see what you have to say about him, but I thought he looked really good. You know, I was kind of surprised Evans was as healthy as he was. Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was just playing through it. But I mean, he had 6 for 119 yards. I thought he played really well, and that was pretty. I mean, people saying they weren't impressed with the Bucks, but I was actually pretty impressed with how they played.
I thought they didn't play. Okay, well, so they definitely could have played worse. I mean,
Yeah,
you could have. I think Washington played definitely better than most people expected.
yeah, yeah.
But I don't think that's necessarily like hating on the Bucks performance at all. I thought the Bucks played a fine game. I thought Brady was better than the stats would say. Um, I mean, yeah, not well. Okay, so the running game. I mean, not having
Ronald Jones.
Ronald Jones. I mean, that was big this game. I thought Fournette played maybe his best game of the year. I don't exactly know, but I mean, it was the game where he's gotten, I don't know if this was the most carries he's gotten in the game or not, but I mean, it was the biggest role he's had in the offense all season, and he played well enough for them to win the game. Who was that running back? Keyshawn Vaughn or whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
that was, I mean, he obviously, wasn't good, but I mean, overall, I thought the Bucks played well enough. Clearly, played well enough to win the game. They'll have to play better to beat the Saints most likely next week. But I definitely think they can do that. I thought. I thought the Bucks receiving. Obviously, I mean, they have so many guys back there that. I mean, they were all great. I mean,
Except for Godwin.
well, okay, except for Godwin, who had literally. I mean, he dropped what, like
Got
over
like 4 or 5
50% of his.
passes.
I think he.
He had 12 targets, 5 catches.
I think he had 5 drops. I'm pretty sure he had 5,
Yeah,
unless there was.
he had at least had 4. I mean, like he at least had 4 definite drops, and maybe I think he did have
I
5.
mean, the announcers actually just jinxed him
Yeah,
so hard. I mean, they were like, well, who was it? Tarico that was like, or
Yeah, he was like
Dungy.
Brady told us how Godwin has the best hands of a receiver he's ever been with, and then they dropped
Yeah,
the next ball. Like literally, as soon as they said that, he dropped the ball. It was so funny.
yeah. I mean, I would just assume that's not going to happen ever again.
Yeah,
But I mean,
yeah,
we'll see. I mean, if Godwin's dropping the ball 5 times a game, then they're probably not going to win next week. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see, how this Bucks offense plays next week against a better. I would say that the Saints probably have a better defense than Washington does. Even
yeah. I mean, a better overall defense, I would say.
yeah, yeah. We'll see. I
Um,
mean, I would be quite sad if the Bucks lose to the Saints next week, but
yeah. Yeah, no, it's that would be. I don't know. I'm definitely leaning Bucks, and even if I hadn't picked it like anyways, I'd still lean Bucks. I just think I don't know. I just see him being the better team right now than the Saints are. But I mean, who knows? Maybe that switches next week. I mean, is that it for Bucks Washington?
yeah, yeah.
All right. I mean, I guess we'll start with the first game. Bills Colts. I mean, these were two teams. These were two teams that I was high on basically the entire year. Of course, we played each other the first week, so you couldn't really see what both of them would do. It was definitely a closer game than than I would have thought it would have been. The way the Bucks have been, I mean, the way the Bills have been playing, and the Colts have been kind of inconsistent. I mean, they barely beat a Jags team last week that was trying to lose, so that was pretty. That wasn't very pretty to watch, especially when they needed that game. But they came back. I mean, I thought Philip Rivers actually played pretty well. I mean, he finished 27 for 46, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns. He didn't even get sacked once. I just thought he looked good. Now, I mean, that last throw, that was, I mean, maybe they should have put Brissett in to throw that Hail Mary, but I don't know. I was pretty impressed with how the Colts played and how they fought. The Bills showed they were the better team by situational football and being able to make plays when they needed to. But I mean, there's definitely big calls that happened. I mean, I kind of want to know what you were thinking when Frank Reich didn't kick the field goal and instead it went for it on fourth down at the 4-yard line. Then the Bills drove 96 yards for a touchdown. I mean, I felt like that was definitely the momentum shift in the game. I think the Colts could have went up 10-3, I think it was, or 13-3. Yeah, they could have went up 10-3. So I don't know. I just
Yeah, I
didn't
mean,
really agree with
so
that.
I mean, I didn't hate the call at the time. I still don't necessarily hate the call. I think the Bills probably end up scoring regardless. If the Colts kick the field goal, the Bills probably still score anyways. I mean, so my takeaways from it would just be Philip Rivers has to make that throw. I mean, you have, I it's been so long since that game. It feels like I forget exactly who was there, who was open,
Doing
but
the fourth down play,
yeah,
it was Michael Pittman.
Pittman. Yes, I mean, so I mean, you had the defense exactly where you wanted them. I think
Yeah, I
if
mean, they ran
if
the
if
crosser route.
if you know that's how if you know that's how open Pittman would be on fourth down, and you're Frank Reich, you do that 9 times out of 10. I mean, it's just it's a play call, and I was fine with it. I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it necessarily. I thought it was fine. But if you're gonna go for it on fourth down at what was it, the 4 yard line or whatever, I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta convert it. And this Bills offense is so good that I can definitely see the argument for, like, you're not going to win kicking field goals. It's just a throw that Rivers is going to make. And as far as Rivers is concerned overall in the game, I definitely thought he played better than I would have expected. If you told me Rivers wasn't going to throw any picks, I mean, I guess, this is where they probably end up being if he didn't throw any picks. It was good. He didn't have a Philip Rivers playoff game, which, I kind of almost was expecting, but it's just, I mean, that throw to Pittman is a throw you've got to make. And if you make that play and you score that touchdown, the game is completely different, and you probably end up winning the game.
Yeah, they would have been. The score was actually 10-7 when that happened. So if they would have scored a touchdown, it would have been 17-7 with a minute and 30 seconds left in the half. So it definitely would have been different. I mean, the Bills went down. I mean, 10 plays, 96 yards in a minute 32. I mean, that's
The
really
Colts,
impressive.
the
But
Colts should have been winning that game going into halftime.
yeah,
I just thought they played so much better than the Bills in the first half.
yeah, I think they definitely outplayed them in the first half. But for the Bills to be up 14-10 after the half, and then they had the ball in the second half, they went and got a field goal. So yeah, that was definitely the difference in the game, was that they didn't get any points there, and then the Bills got basically 10 points because of the field goal the second half. So
Yeah, I mean, the question going into the divisional round is, I mean, for me, is it's just going to be, are the Ravens better than the Colts? And if they are, I mean, are they going to beat the Bills? I mean, it's going to be such a good game, honestly. I'm still kind of questioning the legitimacy of the Bills. I mean, I'm definitely questioning the legitimacy of the Bills when it comes to beating the Chiefs, but when it comes to beating the Ravens, I'm not exactly sure how to feel on that game. But I mean, I guess, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I thought, looking at Allen, I thought Allen played better than I don't know exactly how to word it, but I guess he didn't lose the game for the Bills, and he definitely had some plays that made me realize, like, all right, I mean, in terms of awareness and just fine tuned to the game, I mean, he was so much better than he was last year when he's not like laddering the ball backwards behind his back and stuff like that. And I forget exactly it's been so long since that game, but I forget exactly. There was a couple plays where I was like, he's just so much more aware of what's going on. I mean, yeah, it's just he's come a long way since last year, at least in my mind. And I mean, the regular season clearly showed that, but this playoff game for me, it legitimized how much better Allen's gotten in it. And I don't think it was like a fraudulent, season by Allen, which, I mean, some people might have thought. I know people like Nick Wright or something like that, but
are you buying him as like a real quarterback?
yeah, I mean, he's gonna be a legitimate quarterback in the league for the next 10 to 15 years at this point. I mean, I definitely would not have thought that before. Okay, and it's not that I wouldn't have thought that, but I wouldn't think it's a guarantee that he's like, the Bills quarterback for the next 10 years. But I mean, after this game, I mean, I would probably say he is. I mean, it's only one game, so we'll see. But he's just a lot more aware, and he doesn't make as many dumb plays as he did before, and I think that's kind of the one thing he needed to fix from last year, as well as probably accuracy. And I think he's fixed both of those. He still misses some throws. Don't get me wrong, but I mean
I
he's
mean,
still going to
he's
improve on
pretty
that.
accurate. I mean, I think his completion percent in the game it was 70%. For the season, it was like 67%, 68%, something like that. After his first 2 years, it was in the 50s. So yeah, he's definitely. I mean, I've bought him as a real quarterback since I kind of halfway through the season, and I mean, yeah, he played really well this game. And I mean, him rushing the ball, like I think like that was the thing coming out of college that he could really run the ball. And then this year he started throwing the ball way more. People kind of forgot he could still run the ball. I mean, 11 rushes, 54 yards, and a touchdown. So yeah, I mean, that next week that's definitely going to be the best game of the week. In Bills Ravens, I think it'd be probably the most high scoring game, and it's going to be the most entertaining game. I think it would be a great performance by Allen and Lamar. So
Yeah, unless Saints Bucks is a shootout, then yeah,
I think
which I
that
don't
may
think it will
be.
be.
I don't think it'll be a shootout. I think that game's probably going to be like a come down to the wire, and then like a Brady or a Breeze turnover, or like a great throw or something like that's going to happen. But I think like this game, Bills Ravens, it's going to be like in the high 30s, 40s. It's just going to be like back and forth. It's going to be a great game.
Yeah.
And then I guess we're done with that. So that leads us with our last game, which Seahawks Rams. I mean, I picked the Rams, you picked the Seahawks. I kind of scripted it exactly how it happened, or I said exactly how it happened. That the Seahawks offense it's basically non-existent. I mean, I know the Rams are the number one defense, but I mean, if you look at the Rams' last couple of games, they were scoring in the low 20s. They scored 20 points this game. They never felt like they were ever in control. I mean, they were never really winning in the game, but I'm saying like they never really felt like they were ever going to take control of the game or ever even come close to taking control of the game. And this is against a Rams team that had John Walford starting, and then he gets injured and hospitalized, in the first quarter. And Jared Goff comes in with a broken thumb. I mean, clearly he could not throw the ball. And he finished 9 of 19, but just watching the game, there was slants down the middle that are like 5 yards that he's just completely missing the guy. He's either short or he's high or he's leading him 4 yards ahead. And the Seahawks, I mean, this is definitely their worst loss in the last 10 years, I would say. I mean, especially being in the playoffs, but I mean, at home against a beat up Rams team with basically no quarterback. I don't know. It was a really bad loss.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I predicted the Seahawks was I thought that they would pick up from, the beginning of the season. I just thought that their offense would not be so bad. And honestly, I don't know why. I don't know what happened to the Seahawks. I mean, why is their offense so bad? Why is Russell Wilson, why did he just randomly fall off and become, I mean, that was take the name and the reputation away from this wild card game. And, you know, I would thought that that's how Walford plays in a playoff game, not
Yeah.
Russell Wilson. I mean,
Yeah.
especially after Walford literally gets hospitalized in the first quarter. I mean, and they have to go to Goff, who's essentially throwing with his non-dominant hand at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just that's a game that the Seahawks should have won. I mean, the Rams were one of, if not the worst team in the playoffs. I mean, especially considering the fact that they didn't have a quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I have no idea what the Seahawks are going to do going forward. It just doesn't. I'm just clueless on what happened to the Seahawks. But yeah, I mean, the Rams, if Goff is healthy, are a solid team. Are they going to go into Lambeau and beat the Packers? I mean,
Definitely not.
probably not.
They're
But
probably like 10-point underdogs, right? At least.
it depends on Goff's health to me. But
Even still, even when he's healthy, I mean, he's definitely not. I mean, he had surgery, I guess now 13 days ago or something like that. I mean, he's definitely not healthy. But even if he was, it's not like he was playing great anyways. Which I think that makes the loss even worse. Like a healthy Goff isn't even that good of a quarterback, at least so far this year. I mean, the other years you could say whatever, but this year he was healthy and he played terrible. And you're playing him with a broken thumb, and he's literally throwing the ball with like 3 fingers, and you still, I mean, I don't know. It was just a really bad loss. And I agree with you. I don't know what the Seahawks are going to do in the future because this division's only getting better. The Niners are definitely going to be better this year. I mean, next year. The Cardinals, you'd assume would be better, at least if not the same, where they're competitive and playing close games. And then the Rams, they're still, I mean, they're still a good team. So you can't, they're definitely like a 9-7, 10-6 kind of team. So I don't know what the Seahawks are going to do. They went 12-4 this year, but they definitely played an easier schedule than most teams. Uh, Now they're going to be playing a first place schedule, which I know people, they say don't really look into it, but I mean, it matters somewhat. I know it's only 2 games that are different, but it does matter at least a little bit. So I don't know. Their offensive struggles the second half of the season is really concerning because I don't really see their defense playing as good next year as they were in the second half of this season. So their offense is going to have to play like they did the first half, or else, I mean, they're going to be they'll probably be like a 7-9 team, maybe even 6-10 at the worst.
I don't think the Seahawks will go 7-9, 6-10. I think they'll be 10-6 or something like that again, and probably have a playoff spot. But I mean, that is totally just because I just don't see Russell Wilson and this team being that bad. But overall, I mean, it could happen. I don't know if this offense, if Russell Wilson doesn't find out why he hasn't been, like, why he fell off from the best quarterback in the league, at least in the season, to like a below average quarterback for the second half of the season. I mean, then yeah, they're going to be a 6-10, maybe even worse team. But I'm just going to assume that in the offseason, Russell Wilson decides to, play better. But I don't know. I have so clueless on the Seahawks. We'll talk more about them. They're one of the most interesting teams in the offseason just because, yeah, who knows what happens? I mean, what's wrong with Wilson? At this point, is Pete Carroll going to be on the hot seat going into next year? Especially, if they go 6-10, definitely. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know what they do with him, but it's kind of, I mean, these last couple of years haven't been the best for them in the playoffs. I mean, last year, I actually thought they were a lot better last year. I thought they should have beat the Packers last year, but they didn't. So, I mean, this year they lose in the wild card. Last year, divisional round. The year before that, they lost to the Cowboys in the wild card round. So, I mean, they really haven't. And then I think they missed the playoffs a couple of years. So they really haven't been doing much these last couple of years. Wilson's getting older. The roster really isn't getting that much better. They traded for Adams, gave up 2 first round picks. He gets, he may get 10 sacks, but he's terrible in coverage. He can't cover anyone. So, and that's really what you want a safety to do. He's on a defensive end. So I don't know. They don't have much. I'm not sure what the salary cap situation is, but I'd assume they don't have that much. If you're paying Wilson, they did sign Jamal, right? I'm pretty sure they did. Or yeah, I'm fairly confident they
yeah,
already
I
did that.
believe
So
so.
that's 2 guys who are making a lot of money, and they definitely have other guys who are making money too. So they probably don't have that much flexibility in cap. I'm not really sure. I'm not even really sure what their problem is because if you look at their roster, like offensively, it's like you have Metcalf, you have Chris Carson in the backfield who thinks actually pretty good, but they always have a lot of running backs who can always run the ball for them. But it seems like they just never run the ball for some reason. But you have Wilson, you have Carson, Metcalf, Lockett. I don't know. That seems like a pretty good team to
Yeah.
not, and they can barely put up 25 points a game. It's weird.
Well, I definitely think Metcalf is overrated, but regardless, that's a
I
different
think that
talk for.
too, but he's definitely you can't say he's
Yeah,
not a
no,
good
yeah.
wide receiver.
I saw a video and it was it was definitely true to an extent and pretty interesting. It was just take away Russell Wilson's Super Bowl win, and what has his career been? And it's essentially been playoff disappointment after playoff disappointment, and in all games, definitely not always his responsibility, but he's in the same, like, if he doesn't win another Super Bowl, he's going to be in the same, like, Drew Brees type of thing where it's like he won a Super Bowl pretty early, and then after that, it's been like disappointing year after disappointing year, and like, what's going on?
Yeah.
They're gonna have to. Russell Wilson should / has to win another Super Bowl to validate his legacy, because and I definitely, there are a lot of people that would say like he wasn't even an important part of that 2013 Seahawks team, and I would disagree. I think that Russell Wilson was better than everybody thought in that year. I think the future has proven that clearly, but you could definitely argue that it was the defense that was the most important part of that team, and it definitely was the most important part. You'd like to see Wilson win a Super Bowl as, like, as the carrier of that Seahawks team.
Yeah.
Is it going to happen at this point? Probably not, but yeah, it's just interesting to think about, Wilson's career minus that Super Bowl win, because it's essentially just been losing in the playoffs. I mean, obviously. So
Yeah, no, I've heard that. I've heard that too. I mean, if you take away that Super Bowl win, it's definitely not a. It's a great career, but it's not. You know, there's a lot of disappointment in there, and there's not a lot. There's a lot of winning in the regular season, but when it comes to playoffs, something just happens with the team, something like that. So yeah, he's definitely in that Drew Brees category, where he's gonna have to win another one and be the guy who wins another one. And I guess we'll have to see if that happens. I don't think it's going to happen the next couple years. It may never even happen considering the competition. You know, you're going to go through Mahomes, maybe like Kyler and the Cardinals, maybe someone
Trevor
else.
Lawrence, I mean,
Trevor Lawrence, Justin
Justin Herbert,
Herbert.
Joe Burrow. I mean,
There's so many people that are going next, 3 years. It's going to be completely different. So, it'll be interesting to see. And again, he's only getting older. I think he's 31. I want to say maybe he's 30, but maybe I think he's 31, something like that. So yeah,
yeah, it definitely
um,
doesn't help that he's playing in probably the best division in football as well.
yeah. So that's it for the wild card round. Now, like we were saying, the matchups are Rams at Packers, Bucks at Saints, Ravens at Bills, and then Browns at Chiefs. So we'll get into it more on the next episode where we'll pick our divisional round winners. But I think those are all pretty good games. I'd say the worst game is Rams Packers. I just think the Packers are gonna, easily win that game. I think the Rams defense could definitely hold them, like at least keep them in it a little bit. But in Lambeau, it's probably gonna be snowing. I mean, I think that'll be a pretty easy, outcome to see.
I don't know. I think the Rams could win, but
I mean,
I feel like
maybe.
even though you picked the Rams last week throughout the regular season, I've been slightly higher on the Rams than you have been.
Definitely. I just
Uh,
if they were playing anyone else but the Seahawks, I would have picked the other team. But there was something wrong with the Seahawks, and I don't know. It seemed like most people just kind of ignoring that, but it obviously showed true because they had nothing going in that game.
I mean, if Goff is healthier, like 80-90% for that Packers game, I think they can be competitive. And I mean, it's easy. It's sure they can compete. Can they actually win? Uh, Probably not. But I still think there's a chance that the Rams can beat the Packers. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just not that high on the Packers in playoff scenarios, but maybe it's because again, I mean, I haven't seen Rodgers win a Super Bowl since what 2010, 2011.
2010.
So yeah, I would say the least competitive game will probably end up being Chiefs Browns. But I mean, again, the Chiefs haven't played a good game in 2 months.
Yeah.
So we'll see on that one as well. I mean, yeah, no, I would agree that all these games are pretty good. I definitely think that Bills, Ravens, and Saints Bucks are going to be the two best games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, but I'm hoping for a Bucks win for sure. So, I mean, I'd love to see. It's just thinking about possible Super Bowl matchups. I mean, I would love to see like Bucks and Chiefs, to be honest, or Bucks
Well, I
Ravens.
mean, you picked Bucks Chiefs, so
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying I'd love to see it. Like, honestly, I really would not like to see the Saints in the Super Bowl, but I don't know if that's because I just don't like the Saints or because I think the Saints are more boring than like the Packers and the Bucks. And I think the Bills. I don't want to see the Bills in the Super Bowl because I think the Ravens and the Chiefs are much more interesting. I like the Ravens and the Chiefs more. Like,
I don't know.
I
I
don't know
kind of like the
why.
Bills, but I mean, again, I picked them, so. But I guess through our picks to the wild card, I went 5-1. You went 4-2.
Yeah, something like that. I
Yeah,
mean,
because you had Seahawks and then we both had Steelers. So yeah, you went 4-2. I went five
yeah,
and one.
I think it's much easier to predict the wild card games than it is regular season games.
Well,
But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But just saying, I mean,
yeah.
the games that we did pick, I guess that was our record. So I guess that's it for the wild card. Uh, for the NFL playoffs. I guess the only other thing that we wanted to talk about was the national championship game, which is Monday night. It's Ohio State and Alabama. They're an 8.5 point favorite. But I guess we'll kind of go back to last week, or is that 2 weeks ago, whatever day that was, when Ohio State. And then we have to talk about the Alabama Notre Dame game. That game was a blowout. But the Ohio State Clemson game, I mean, I guess, did you watch it? And if you did, I'd assume you did. Did you, or if you even remember about it, like, what were your kind of takeaways about the game?
So I was talking to a friend about it, and he was like, and he's big. He's like bigger into college football than I am, but I mean, like stupid. And he was saying like, Ohio State shouldn't be in the playoff, and I was like, I mean, Ohio State, there's a solid chance, and even though they've only played 6 games, there's a very solid chance they're gonna just walk in there and beat Clemson. I didn't think that Ohio State was gonna win. Uh, it's been so long, I can't really remember like exactly what I was thinking at the time, but I mean, yeah, I mean, I think Ohio State's obviously, they're clearly, in my opinion, the second best team in the country. I definitely don't think they're going to beat Alabama. I mean, 8.5 point spread. Who would I take? I mean, I'd probably take Ohio State, but only because I just envision, maybe it's just because I want this game to be a close game. But I mean, if Alabama was just blew out Ohio State, I honestly wouldn't be too surprised. I think Alabama is just so talented, and I mean, how many first round picks are they going to have next year? I mean, they're going to have a bunch of first round picks. Not that Ohio State isn't, because they're probably going to have first round picks too. I mean, Fields obviously, but I just think
I
this
mean,
Alabama team is so good, and I don't see it being too much of a competition.
yeah, I mean, I could already think of like 3 top 10 picks from Alabama off the top of my head, and I'm not even like a big college football fan either. But like, I just read 3 top 10 picks. I mean, that's not even counting the rest of the first round and the rest of the draft. But yeah, I mean, from the Ohio State Clemson game, I mean, like, I wasn't expecting Ohio State to win. I thought Clemson was better. But I mean, if Fields is going to play like that, which I mean, I'm not assuming he's going to play like that this game. I mean, I think it's 6 touchdowns, like 400 yards, or whatever it was. He played amazing. I don't really see him doing that again, especially against Alabama. But if he could do that, they definitely have a chance to win. I think even then it'd still be tough. I mean, every single game they've played really hasn't been that close. I mean, I think the SEC championship game against Florida was like kind of a close game. It was 52-46. That was kind of just like a shootout game, but I don't know. I think Alabama's just a better team. I know most people are probably going Alabama, so I don't really want to go with them, but it's kind of hard not to. But for the eight and
Yeah,
a half points, pick, I'd probably go Ohio State too. I don't know. I think it's gonna be a close game. It's kind of hard not to be a close game. So
yeah. No, I would probably take Ohio State, although I think it might end up being one of those games where it's like Ohio State's able to stay competitive and keep it a close game. But at the end of the day, like when I'm watching it, am I going to ever think like the game's in jeopardy for Alabama? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I don't know, probably not to be honest. But
yeah,
looking at Trevor Lawrence, I mean, obviously he's been super hyped as a quarterback ever since the national championship game a couple years ago. I mean, what are your thoughts? Like, do you still think that Lawrence is the best quarterback prospect since? I mean, people have said since Andrew Luck, maybe since like I mean, I wasn't alive then, but like Elway or like basically ever. I mean, I don't know exactly what you think. To me, it's like, I mean, I'm not exactly too sure. I mean, I guess I can't like compare him to other quarterback prospects, but do I think that he's this like for sure, like he's gonna just walk on the scene in the NFL and be like, like a top 10 quarterback? I mean, probably. I don't think he's going to be. I think he might be slightly overhyped, is like what I'm trying to say as a prospect, because he hasn't really. There's been big games where he has underperformed. Maybe not played poorly, but he's definitely underperformed in some big games.
yeah. I'd say I wouldn't compare him to Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck's like he was a can't miss prospect, like actually, and he really, I mean, if he had a somewhat stable offensive line, he's still playing. Like he would still be playing today, wouldn't have retired, and he would have been even better. So he wouldn't have had as many injuries. But Lawrence isn't like him. Like he definitely has trouble with the rush whenever there's pressure on him, like a blitz. He definitely seems to have problems with it. He's definitely mobile. He's pretty athletic. Like if when he escapes the pocket, he could definitely move and throw on the run or even just take off and go. But he definitely has problem when people blitz or just bring from multiple sides, and he kind of goes through his progressions a little slow. At least, I mean, I'm not like an expert or anything, but that's kind of just what I see. But yeah, I mean, I think he is definitely a little overhyped, but I mean, he's definitely like a top prospect. I just don't think he's number one out of like every quarterback or even on the level like Andrew Luck was. I don't think he's there yet, but obviously could he be? I mean, yeah, he definitely could be, but I don't think he is.
I'm assuming you'd still have him over every quarterback in this year's drafts, or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, no, I would
That'd
too.
be it'd be crazy if Jacksonville. I mean, they may hire Urban Meyer, which seems like they probably will. I mean, if they take Justin Fields, I mean that'd be
I don't know. They're gonna take Lawrence or trade,
yeah.
but I mean, like personally, yeah, no, I would still have Lawrence above like Fields and Wilson and
I
Lance,
mean,
but
people have Wilson above Fields, so it's
yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know if I would agree with it or not. I mean, I just don't know enough about Wilson specifically. I just other than Lawrence and Fields, I mean, I just wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't know too much about like Lance and stuff other than, but yeah, we'll see. I mean, yeah,
so we're both going Alabama for national for the game. We're
yeah,
both going
yeah,
Alabama.
yeah.
All
I
right.
think, yeah, Alabama to win, but I mean, I think there's a very solid chance that Ohio State covers. So
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. So I guess we'll see what happens tomorrow night, Monday night, national championship. We both have Alabama, but it could go either way. But I guess we'll see. So I mean, I'm pretty sure that's it. I don't think there was anything else, right?
yeah, I mean, we'll be back with another episode probably, Thursday or something like that, for the divisional round. Um, NBA news, I guess. You know, a lot of games have been postponed. Well, the Celtics Heat game was postponed. There's a solid amount of people in the league right now with COVID. Um, it doesn't seem like the NBA is gonna like put a halt or pause the season at all. It seems like stuff is gonna go on as planned. I would assume that's gonna happen, but I mean, this could be the beginning of what ends up being, the NBA pausing the season. I don't think they're going to, but I mean, if every team is losing their best three players, then like, I don't think that's not an NBA product that anybody wants to watch, and it's not an NBA product that's like, you know, should a game where a team doesn't have their best three players because of COVID, that's not necessarily unavoidable, but like, I mean, should a game like that even be counted in the standings? Like, probably not. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with that, but I'm definitely hoping that the season doesn't get paused or anything. So,
Yeah. I mean, the Sixers played with like 8 players. I think yesterday. I think it was. So
yeah.
it's definitely going around. There's definitely more teams with it. I know, like I mean, the Wizards, the last 4 games they've played, one player on one of those 4 teams has gotten it, or at least had to go quarantine. So I mean, clearly something's going around. But yeah, they said they wouldn't pause the season or stop it, which I mean, I agree with. I like you see what the NFL did. I know it's different. Like you have way more people and you can kind of just fill spots on the roster and everything like that. But it's also once a week. It's not like 2 or 3 times a week. But I don't know. I think pausing it's just I don't know. I don't think it's good. I think you should just keep going through. And if it comes to like a real problem where like there's multiple teams with multiple players out and like star players are out, then I think you have to reconsider at that point. But right now, I think you just keep going through.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, that's the I didn't get to watch most of the game, but the Sixers and Nuggets game, I mean, Tyrese Maxey had 39 points because
Yeah.
they just didn't have anybody to play,
Yeah.
um, which was crazy. I mean, but yeah, I mean, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, also last thing on the NBA, I mean, LaMelo Ball went from a scoreless game to the youngest person to ever get a triple double in NBA history. He looks like the best pick he's already probably the best pick the Hornets have had
Since Kemba.
since Kemba. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Already
he's
through
yeah.
10 games.
And
Like,
he
I
went
mean,
yeah, and he went from playing like 15 minutes. Now he's playing 30 plus minutes. Like he's clearly the start. He's gonna be the start. I don't know if I don't
he
think he's
hasn't he
still
hasn't even
starting.
started yet. He's not a
But he's
starter
I
yet,
mean he's
but
playing
he's going
starter
to.
minutes, and they're obviously gonna trade Rozier or Devontae Graham. Like one of them is gonna be gone. It just has to be because he's obviously going to be the starter at some point. So yeah, I mean we both picked him for rookie of the year. I mean, I wanted to go a different way, but I couldn't see. I mean, again, that was only one game, but like he's clearly going to be putting up numbers like this. He's a triple double threat like every single night. He's going to have the ball a lot. He's going to be shooting. He's still not a great shooter, but he's going to be shooting. So yeah, he's been pretty good so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, for anybody who doesn't, want to watch the Hornets, which I definitely don't blame you at all. I mean,
Yeah.
just look up like, LaMelo Ball's highlights throughout the first however many games of the season. To me, he sees I mean, just like Lonzo, what people thought he was going to come out of the draft. He just sees the court so much better than most, if not all rookies so far, and a lot of rookies in the past. It's just, and there's a very solid chance that he's just he might, by the end of the season, he might be a top 40 or 50 player already. I mean, I don't think it might. I don't know if it's gonna happen, but I mean, I don't know. I mean,
he's on the trend. He's on the trend.
yeah. Who would you rather? Actually, let me ask you this question. Who would you rather have, Ja Morant or LaMelo Ball going forward? I mean, I would assume you'd go Ja Morant. I would go Ja Morant too, but by the end of the season, that might change. I might change my mind on that.
I mean, like if LaMelo was more efficient, then I'd definitely consider it way more. I mean, obviously it's his rookie year, so it'd be different in his second and third year. He just has to be more efficient. He has to be a better shooter. It's not like Ja's a great shooter either, but like he's clearly a difference maker. On the I mean, that Grizzlies team last year had no reason to even come close to the playoffs, and somehow, I mean, they should have been in the playoffs if not for like the stupid, like play-in tournament and all that stuff. But yeah, I would still take Ja Morant though.
No, I would too, but I mean, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But there's a solid chance that by the end of the year, I might flip flop on that one. But and again, I mean, if you've listened to my LaMelo Ball takes throughout so far in the podcast, it's gone from rookie of the year to bust after his first game to like I'd rather have him out over Ja Morant. So like it's clearly very inconsistent, but I mean he's looked pretty solid other than that one scoreless game, basically.
Yeah.
But I mean, anyways, yeah.
And one thing, only because my dad's a Knicks fan, he wants me to talk about the Knicks. So shout out to the Knicks and how they've been playing.
Well, what's their record? I mean, they were 5-3. I don't know.
They did, yeah. They've lost the last 2 games. But I mean, look, do I think they're going to win 40 games? No, but can they win 30 out of it in a 72 game season? I think they can win 30 games. I don't think that's out of the question.
Sure.
So and that's
that would get them in the playoff. That would get them in the playoff tournament, maybe.
It maybe could. I mean, obviously, the Cavs looked really good at the beginning too, but they're kind of falling off. The Magic, they looked really good, but they've had some injuries and they're probably going to fall off a little bit. Maybe they can get that 10 seed, but there seems like Pistons, the Cavs, I mean, the Hawks have been better, but even still, they're struggling. The Hornets, they'll be bad. So yeah, do I think that they'll make the playoffs? I mean, no. I mean, how about just one more thing? How about Toronto? I mean, they're 2-7. That's a team that I thought they were going to be. The only reason I picked them to be in the playoffs was out of respect, because how what they've done in the past. But I mean, I said it. If I didn't say it, I should have said it because I was thinking it. I was like, this team's really not going to be that good this year. I just think they'll be good enough to make the playoffs, but they have not been good so far this year. But
yeah, I mean, they're at the point where they're probably if they don't get to the point where they're going to be in the playoffs, then you probably look to trade Kyle Lowry. You'd look to trade him regardless. I mean, but
well, yeah, they may just keep him because he's like a Raptor. But I mean,
yeah. But what I'm saying is, if
they'll look to trade
if they continue the 2-7 trend, then you might trade Kyle Lowry because he wants to be traded, or because, I mean, just out of even if it's because he's a Raptor, then you may trade him because he's been a Raptor for so long. And you're like, you know what, this is clearly not a place that somebody who's a veteran and wants to win, another ring wants to be at. So, we'll trade you, even if it's for, 20 cents on the dollar. I mean, something like that. I mean, I don't know.
Are you there?
I think I just lagged out, but
yeah, you just
anyways, did you hear what I said or no?
You said it's not a place to win, so they should trade him.
Well, I was saying, you might even trade him because he's a Raptor, is what I was saying. Out of respect for Lowry, we're 2-7. If they're at a place where they're 10-20, then they're like, you know what, we'll trade you because you're a Raptor, out of respect, because nobody wants to be here when they're. How old is Lowry? I mean, he's 30 something. He's to the point
33, 34.
33. Yeah, I mean, he's probably only got a couple years left at this point, if that. So it's you trade him, even if it's for not that much, just to give Lowry a shot at being on a contending team again. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, clearly my prediction for the Raptors is already completely wrong. But
2 seed. Yeah, that was a great prediction.
We just won't talk about it. I mean, that's probably the worst prediction I've ever had on the show. I mean, the show's only been a thing for a few months, but whatever. I mean, that's probably the worst prediction I've ever had on the show. But I mean, yeah. I mean, the Raptors have played horribly. Honestly, I mean, very, very quickly before the show's over, the play-in tournament, and this is I could have talked about this earlier, but I think the play-in tournament is it's so just what's the point of it? Like
Yeah,
you
no, I
could,
think it's stupid too.
I mean, like the NBA out of all leagues is the league where like we could probably afford to have only 4 seeds, and the finals results of the past 10 years probably wouldn't have changed had you only had
Yeah.
4 seeds in the playoffs.
Yeah, like MLB, NFL, like any team could make it to the championship and even win the championship. Definitely more so in the MLB, but then I would say NFL second. NBA, it's like 4 teams or 5 teams at the most who have a chance at actually winning the championship. Like the 8 seeds and the 7 seeds, they're not going to win the championship. If anything, they'll win the first round, but even then, they most likely won't. So it's, yeah, I mean, I agree. Like they definitely to have, I mean, 8 teams in each conference is enough already. And obviously, it's still 8 teams, but to have a play-in tournament, and then like some team that could just be so bad, and then they win 2 games in a row or something like that, and they get in. Like I don't know, I just don't, I
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
really like it that
like,
much.
well, I don't see the point in saying to, let's just say, the Pelicans are the 9 seed or something like that. Like, there's no point to saying to the Pelicans, you know what, like, we feel like you've played well enough to the point where you deserve a chance to, like, make the playoffs, even though I just doesn't, I don't see the point at all. I mean, we already know that there's in each conference at most there's 4 teams that have a shot at winning the whole thing.
Yeah,
I mean, the best 4 and 5 seeds there have ever been are basically just LeBron-led teams that have underperformed in the regular season only because they choose to not care that much. But if they cared, they'd probably be higher than like the 4 seed in prior years. Yeah, I don't. There's honestly no point to the play-in tournament. If anything, I'd like to. I mean, I wouldn't want to, but if anything, you'd reduce the amount of teams in the NBA playoffs to me. But
well, that would mean less money, so they wouldn't do
no, I'm
that.
not
But
saying they should. I'm just saying
yeah,
like
no, I
if
know. I'm just
anything,
saying
yeah.
though. All right, well, I guess that probably wraps it up. With most of the NBA stuff, but we can talk about that next week if we need to. But I would say that wraps up this episode. Um, Again, we'll do our divisional round picks next week on Thursday. And then we'll see what happens next weekend, Saturday, Sunday, 2 games each. So, yeah, I would say that's probably it. I mean, unless you have anything else to say.
No, no.
All right, well, that's it. So I guess we'll see you guys.
Yep, Raptors getting the 2 seed. Yep. All right.